This is the Poddy with Serene
and Pearl.
Get it right, Poddy.
Hey, we're on Serene. No Dan again today because it's actually the same day as last week for us. You guys, it's a new week for you
When
guys.
Dan shows up, we have to do 2 for his drive all the way out here. And so
Dan's still missing. Last week you guys heard the podcast that Serene brought on the power of play. I don't know what we named it. This is in your future, our present, right? So we just finished that podcast right now, and then everybody here in the Poddy cabin just kept adding things and I had actually another topic for a podcast, and we're like, no, we're doing part 2 because what you guys here in the Poddy cabin, we got 4 men in here, we're bringing was too good.
Yeah, so we're all gonna sit him in Danny's seat. Yeah, we're gonna just play musical chair.
Yeah, we're going to do a part 2. No Dan, but Mike says not 4 men, 3 men. Mike's...
No, 4. I saw him fixing his curls.
Yeah, Mike was fixing his curls ready for you girls.
Hey, let's start with Ards.
Yeah, so we were just, come sit Ard. Arden, Serene's oldest son.
I'm not dressed like Danny.
Yeah, you didn't dress up for the ladies.
Chair, so.
Yeah.
No, the ripped jeans is cool.
Yeah,
I like it.
But what? So we just finished the Poddy, and then everyone was like, "Whoa!" All these things about playing, but we're like, "No, this is too good. We can't keep this back." So part 2. But what were you saying?
No, you guys had mentioned how kids always look on the bright side, even when things aren't going so well. And there's one of the reasons why I chose to go. They gave me the option when I was diagnosed with cancer, the first, and they were like, I actually went to the adult side. I was in the ICU.
Yeah.
And once I was done with that, they said, hey, do you want to, obviously you got to have treatment. Do you want to go to the kids side or stay on the adult side? And I was like,
yeah, because you were 18. Yeah.
I went over there, and it was just the colorful pictures on the wall, and the kid is just it was dark and dismal on the adult side, and it was just playful on the kid side. And it was tragic seeing small kids, babies, to teenagers going through what they went through. But even with that, some of them had terminal diagnosis. They all dreamed. They're like, I'm going to be healthy. They're like, or they all said, they were like, I'm going to be this when I grow up. They didn't look at what they were going through. I mean, they felt it, right? Yeah. And I mean, it's sad because there's so many kids through the years that I was going that are no longer with us. But they still, through that time, that struggle, they were like, I'm going to be a fireman when I grow up. They always were happy.
Was that one baby you said that, I don't know what his age was, but I think he was very, very little, but he was a playing age baby. Mm-hmm. And you said whenever, and I think maybe his parents had jobs or something and they couldn't always be there because he was had to live in Vanderbilt. I don't know the full story, but you said whenever you walk past this room, can you talk about him?
So this, this is actually when I did my stem cell transplant. And I think this kid was in the foster system, and it's just so sad. But he was sick, and he was getting chemotherapy.
Was he getting a stem cell transplant too?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
He was on the same floor, and most everyone on that floor was getting stem cell transplant. 2 years old, maybe. Just so sad. And there was always a caretaker there. His parents weren't there. I don't know what the situation was. But I remember walking. I did my walks around on that same floor. I was only allowed to be on that floor because it was all it was all
immunosuppressive floor,
protected, and he would just be just constantly playing. He was able to be in a little walker, and he had no hair like I did. We're both bald as babies' butts, but he was playing around, and the nurses would play with him, and he was always so happy. Yeah, and he was able to, they let him watch some Disney movies, and he was just always happy, and he didn't. No, and there were other teenagers on that floor, and they were missing something because they had experienced a life, and now their life was sad and dismal. But this little kid was I'm gonna choose. He was happy. So that was one of the I enjoyed walking. Even though I felt bad and crappy, crap on a Ritz cracker sometimes. I enjoyed walking and doing my rounds and seeing this little kid, and he was smiling at you and just running around, and it was just,
he was going through
great.
all the same feelings, but his mind was not involved in the negative.
Do you think you're sitting here well today, and yours was a long journey. I think 7 years of cancer treatment, but I don't know. You wouldn't know the answer, but do you think your decision to remain in that children's ward is part of the reason that you're here and healthy today, or?
I think so. There is definitely a mental side of choosing the joy of the Lord. Yeah. Happiness is fleeting. The joy of the Lord really stays the same in all situations. Whether you're going through a hard time, you got to choose to be happy. You got to choose the joy of the Lord. That hey, this is where God wants me in this time in my life, and I'm learning from this, and I'm going to be better for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that child. Like those of you who didn't hear part 1 of this play, The Power of Play, you go back and listen, because that was all like. That was Serene's altar call to come start playing again. It was so good. But now we're talking about kind of the practical aspects of it. But I remember, Arden, it was so hard to watch you go through that journey. And one day we're going to bring you back and we're going to hear your whole story. But as your aunt, I found it hard to see you, to like... Mm-hmm.
There were some...
Oh, it was hard to look at you, and when I saw what your body was going through, and I just wanted to scream and run out. Whenever I was there, I don't know how your mum did. I wanted to run away and never see you like that again, because it was so hard. But you had this childlike trust, and I'm sure it's something that you chose, and you kept your humor the whole way.
Oh, totally.
You were laughing and cracking jokes. But what was that? Was that just you deciding?
Yeah, it was. I wasn't going to let that define me. Yes, I was sick. Yes, but I was like, I'm not a sick man. Like, I'm not going to let this define me. I'm like, hey, Arden was a sick man, and that was my life.
Right.
Yes, I was dealing with sickness.
Yeah.
But I was going to choose to still do things. I wasn't going to like, oh, I'm sick, I can't work, I can't do this, or I can't be happy. I'm like, I don't want to have that, my wife have that memory and my family have that memory of me. So that I did. When someone's like, Arden, how you doing? And even though I felt like crap, I'd be like, I'm great.
Yeah,
I'm great.
you did.
I'm wonderful. And that was
you hated people coming up and saying, Arden.
Oh yeah, like, how are you doing, Arden? Like, how are you feeling? Expecting like I was going to say, I'm feeling terrible. But I'd be like, no, I'm feeling great. Like, I don't know. Some people did expect, because they knew I was going through that and chemotherapy, like, Arden, how you feeling? I'm like, I hate it when people did that. Like, I was like, just be like, Arden.
Obviously, you're going through a rough time, but I
don't know. There's a balance of
it.
Is, but
and some of us just don't know what to say.
I'll never forget, though, Arden. I've got 2 things I want to add to this whole story, but I'll never forget. This was really in a bad time. This is, I think, before you were admitted to Vanderbilt. When you were so pale. You were like as white as the walls. I mean, you were so pale. Like all of your good color, healthy color had gone. And you could hardly walk. You walked very slow, like very slow. We were going to visit somebody in hospital. It can't have been Isaiah or maybe it was Isaiah. I don't know. Our other son that was had a terrible car accident. But anyway, we're going to visit somebody at the hospital, and it just took you so long to walk to the car. I remember that. And we came home, and we were going to have scones, jam, and cream for dinner. I remember. And while I was cooking it, you entertained everybody. You're doing slapstick humor where you were like doing all these mimings and like doing it like absolutely as crazy goofy as you possibly
I will say this. There's a joke. I think I scared my wife a couple of times, because when I was bald, I like doing like Gollum impersonations. And there's one time I got a ticket because I was in the hospital, and my license, my tags were expired, and I was speeding, and I got pulled over. And this was after like a 3-week stint in the hospital, after some treatment. And the cop was like, "Well, your tags are expired," because I didn't renew them because it expired while I was there, and I was speeding. And he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna give you a $600 ticket or something like this." It was expensive. And I went to the court when like my court day came up, and I was like, I made a joke, and they asked for my ID, and I said, "Hey, don't make fun of." And I was already a little bit better at that time. I was like, "Don't make fun of me." I was like, I know I look like Gollum there. Yeah. Everyone in the courtroom just burst out laughing. And the judge was like, you know what? You can pay the speeding ticket.
Yes. So big. So you were very full of slapstick, very full of humor. I remember driving, we were going to a rehearsal for some weddings, and you were driving, you were sick. And I just remember you the whole way. You were goofing off. You couldn't stop saying jokes the whole time. You were full of humor.
My wife jokes with me. She's like, "You're just never gonna grow up, aren't you?" Like, she's like, "You're just still my little boy." I don't know why she just jokes around because like I think sometimes as adults we lose the playful aspect. We're like, "Oh, that's just childish, right?"
Yeah.
But there is something to being happy and being joyful, and that was something I learned during that whole time in my life is don't lose that joy, don't lose that happiness, because that's why I chose the children's side.
That was your practical way of showing. That was like your stand. I'm staying here where there's joy in the children's ward, even though I've aged out.
Yeah.
And there was sadness there.
Yeah.
But so it doesn't mean you can't go. There are times in life, like times to be
friends.
sad, times,
Yeah.
but the buoyancy, the bounce back that kids have. That's the main thing. They don't stay in those sad periods of time forever.
No.
Yeah. Like they might have just had a terrible treatment and felt like crap on a Ritz cracker, like you just said. But then maybe some like person would come in and bring them a new toy.
Yeah.
It's all forgotten.
Yeah.
It's all play now. It's all play for the next hour.
Easy children don't need a lot to make them happy.
It's true.
They just need quality time with their loved ones, and and that's as adults we put these parameters like, hey, I need this, and that's what I did. I put those parameters on when I was sick. I was like, I can't be truly happy until I'm healthy.
Right.
And I'm like, wait a minute, no, I need to be happy now. I need to have the joy of the Lord now.
That was a decision you made. How far into your journey?
It was a few years, and it was years, and actually. When my daughter was born, I was like, oh man, I'd be a lot happier now if I know I could be here for my daughter forever.
Yeah.
I was kind of sad, like on the day that she was born. I was happy, but I was sad.
Yeah.
And it kind of robbed some joy of that experience. And looking back, I wish I was like, don't even think about that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be here for her because that's why I did that. Ended up doing the stem cell because I was like, I need to be here for her. Yeah. And it was a tough choice, and it was I had to go through pain. And suffering, but
it's a tough choice because you were so strong and you were so great, and you were not in like dark stages of cancer
at that point.
But you had to.
I guess we'll cover that in another podcast, but I don't want to get down a rabbit trail.
But no, that's so interesting. I didn't know that was something, because you always had your humor. I didn't know that was something that it took a few years.
It's part of my
to
personality.
find.
I've always been. I like to. Use humor. I like to use humor.
At that time when the baby was born, I never knew.
That's the first.
I like to use humor to cover up.
Yeah.
Like if I'm upset or if I'm like frustrated, I'll use humor to bounce back.
But even though you might be using it, it's still what if you could. It still does something to the body and to others around 100%. You. It's still healing. Yeah. But I do think that you went through a lot of chemo, more than most people, I think, because your cancer was very resistant to it. And yet, the nurses and doctors, not his cancer, the cancer that, your body was challenged with. The nurses and doctors would just always talk about how well you coped with it, your body.
That was funny is the first, I guess, is because I was so sick at the beginning.
Yeah.
When I started taking chemotherapy, I didn't really have a lot of side effects. I had just hair loss and a couple different things. I didn't really experience like the low energy and like there's a whole lot of complications. For years. And then I was fit, I was active, and I started developing that mindset of, hey, I'm not going to let this define me. I'm going to push myself, and it doesn't matter how I'm feeling, I'm going to force myself to feel better. Yeah. And then I started doing low dose chemotherapy. I was on a break for a year right before my daughter was born. And I started doing low dose chemotherapy again, and I started feeling bad. I started feeling really bad with that chemo. And my doctor was like, well, Arden, it's about time. Like for years. But maybe
you felt so bad before it was no difference. Like
that's my theory is I already was at ground zero.
To kind of death, yeah.
And
so chemo couldn't put you any lower.
And it was kind of like that low energy, kind of like lethargic feeling that I had when I was really sick.
Yeah. So. But I think that's interesting that you learned it early because you were faced with a big challenge that a lot of people aren't faced with early in your life. So you learned that I'm not going to wait till all my circumstances are perfect till I decide to be happy. But no. I've learned that too. But for me, it took way longer than that, Arden, and I still wrestle with it. And I have to remind myself, Pearl, you're waiting until everything's perfect. You're deciding not to be happy. And I'm like, come on.
There's another thing, and it's floated. It's been all over the internet here and there. But there's one person that was asked in a video, and there've been plenty of videos after that since this video came out. But it was, hey, if I gave, they're like, would you be so happy if I gave you $10 million tomorrow? And they're like, yeah, I would. But if tomorrow, if you received $10 million, but that was the only day you were able to live, would you do it? And they're like, no. And then they were like, okay, well, you're saying tomorrow is worth more than $10 million.
Right.
We don't act like that. We don't act like tomorrow.
Wow.
Today, this second that's where we live for, because we're not promised tomorrow.
Yeah.
We don't know when our time is. We want it to be forever.
Yeah.
But we're here for the glory of the Lord.
Yeah.
And we're here to serve Him. And oftentimes we take it for granted and we live our lives going through the motions. That's kind of my passion. I'm like, hey, for so many years, especially the first 2 or 3 years, I was sick. I was like, oh, I can't do anything. And I just kind of lived going through the motions. And now, kind of midway into that whole journey, I was like, I can't. My family deserves better, the best version of me. My wife deserves the best version of me. The people I work for deserve the best version of me. And I can't just waste my life. So that's why I developed that mindset, kind of slow. It was a process.
Yeah.
Wow, I love it.
And that's your mantra for life, undefeated. Arden's writing a book too, so
I'm writing a book.
And we'll get him on here and tell the full story one day soon.
Yeah. We'll do it soon.
But thanks, Arden.
Yeah,
absolutely.
JD, come here in this seat, because you guys have never met JD.
This guy knows how to play.
JD, this is your... Okay, so let's talk about JD. Just because he's here in the background, you guys. He's operating cameras.
Yeah, the beauty part about this is I'm the editor, so if this goes bad,
yeah, that's right.
Cut it out.
Take us over.
Mate, we'll know it's missing. We'll have to have you redo it.
JD has been with us for many, many years in many capacities for our business. We have our business here in Hickman County, Tennessee, which is like very rural, and you grew up here, man. So you're gonna love his accent.
I'm probably the only local within the company.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody when they come to visit, I was like, actually, I'm from Ireland, but I just have worked really hard to develop this accent.
That's hilarious.
So let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. I am country, and I was born and raised here.
But you know what I love about you, JD, and it's your playful spirit. And Arden had always said to me, he's like, oh, I love working with that JD. I just love it because he makes a work day fun.
A play day.
He makes a work day a play day. And
that's what you do. And I know we're going to bring practical things on how to play, like how to play practically as an adult, right? And you're going to bring some things for us, JD. But I have to say, we've been filming our workout DVDs, with you in the background and these guys, this team. But it was, and I was so stressed about it because for me, it was so stressful because I had never done this before and I didn't feel worthy to do it and all these stupid psychological things I had to go through. But it was so fun. Those days were so fun because JD's commenting on and he's, behind the camera and
he does this little twerking.
He's dancing.
The
but
twerk master.
Yeah, we're going to do twerking with JD as an exercise DVD.
Stay tuned for that.
It's going to be so good. But you were saying when we finished part 1, talk about what you were talking about.
Well, we never know what you guys are going to talk about.
Yeah.
And when we come in here. And it was so fitting talking about the playful. I was sitting here and where we're located, there's a house next door and your grandkids.
Yeah.
And the neighbor kids. And they're all out there with the one mom. And they're all ranging age like this, and of course they're all little towheads, most of them, which I had towheads, so I appreciate that. But I was watching out the window while we were talking about that, and I was like, this is heart healthy. We always talk about heart healthy and food stuff, but this was heart healthy for me, watching those little kids play, ride their bikes up and down the street and run around, and some of them's barefooted, and it's December, and I'm like, this is awesome. Because kids have completely forgotten how to play.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, that brought me back to when I was a young dad. Although my wife and I, which actually we will be married 32 years next Wednesday.
Yay.
And his
but we
wife
waited
is
9
amazing.
years. I stalemated her for a while. We waited 9 years before we had kids.
Wow.
I don't recommend that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't,
Okay.
because I tell everybody, I said, if I knew they'd have been that much fun, I'd have had them a lot sooner.
Yeah.
But we grew together. I guess I was always afraid to have kids because I was afraid I'd have to grow up. But We didn't. We kind of grew together. So
Yeah.
we're close. But I remember being a young dad and playing with my kids. And I promise you, what I watched out there while y'all were talking, doing the podcast, I was like, if every family did that, if they played with their kids when they're that small, just took the time to play with their kids when they're that small, when they're older, I promise you, your bond is just, it's
Because you're so close to your boys now. They're in their 20s, right?
Yeah. I have 23 and 20.
And you said something to me. You said if people would just skip, like we're talking about how to practice. We forget how to play when we're growing up, right?
Yeah.
What can make us play? What can pull us out of our adult funk where we're all about rules and stress? And you said if people would just skip, he's like, have you guys ever skipped
He skips
lately?
home from church. He lives across the road from their church.
Yeah, I do.
I said, yes, Jenny. I said, sometimes I make myself skip, and you can't be sad when you skip.
You can't be sad when you skip. And then, I'm 56, but I don't know if my knees would allow me to skip very far, but the more you go, the higher you try to go. And it just feels good. It just feels so good.
How long ago did you do this skipping home from church? All of you guys.
Don't know. It's not been that long ago.
Okay, because I just have to see this picture in my head of JD.
Yeah, it hadn't been that long
skipping
ago.
across the road with wifey too.
Wife and kids.
Oh, I love it.
So,
All 20 and above.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, that's so
That's
good.
fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I sometimes, because you commented we were doing one thing and I had gotten kind of stressed out thinking about the whole deal. But typically I go into everything with a fun, jovial, happy type attitude.
So when you wake up and you go to work every day, like, because I don't see this like big old kind of like tick in the box, like Joe versus Volcano with the like fluttering fluorescent lights, whatever. It doesn't seem like it's your brain space. So what's your brain space when you get up? And
I don't know. I've always been a happy person. I try not to let stress or I made a comment to myself years ago that nobody can mess up my day but me.
I love
so good.
that.
Because I have to say, you've been with us for many years. There's been hard times in our company, JD. We've had to make cuts. We've had you in many different positions, right? And it didn't matter the position. Right now, you're working cameras. That's actually your specialty, what you did.
Right.
But we didn't hire you for that. You have had to do a lot of grunt jobs for us, jobs that you probably didn't even love, that weren't your specialty. But we always knew that if you were in a position, you'd be doing it to your full capacity and you'd be happy about it.
We never wanted to ever come to the day where we'd have to lose JD because he's part of the joy of the company.
Yeah, it was really important for our company because he's a joy. You're a joy bringer.
I want to know too. You said you've been married 32 years coming up.
Yep.
Do you think that's made the big difference too? In the fact there's so many marriages, even Christian marriages, they struggle. And I've met your wife, and she seems to be such a joyful person too. But is it just because you guys have brought that playful attitude to your marriage?
I think so. And we grew up very similar and with the same Christian background, Christian parents. And, I'm not going to say it's always been roses, but typically anything that we fussed about was always stupid.
Yeah.
But it's I think so because it's funny and you guys you've been married long enough, you can test that. You can finish each other's sentences and thoughts. Yeah. And that's almost scary.
It's a game. It can become a game,
it's
right?
It's like, whoa, what? How does that happen? But, I've always just, like I said, I've always tried to be happy and I always want to try to bring our office. You talking about the guy, Arden and Mike we all work together and we have a ball. It's playful. Now we get a lot of work accomplished, but it's very playful. And I look at them, I'm like, I could be their dad. Yeah. Mike thinks I was born in the 40s. I'm like, Mike, I'm not that old. But in his mind, he thinks I was born in the 40s. But I had
80 something.
I had a drafting teacher in high school. Great guy. retired Navy guy, and he was one of the few teachers I had in school that treated us like on the same level and not teacher-student. And outside of our drafting room door was home ec department. So I had a little girl that I was, sweet on back then. And so I would go to the back door when he wasn't looking, and she would hang out the window and we would talk. And sometimes I'd slip out. And one day I turned around and he's standing at the door, and he's about 4'5" and no hair. And he's looking, and I'm like, oh, I go back. He said, Mr. Donson, he said, you love life, don't you?
Aww.
I said, I do. He said, you enjoy every minute of it and having fun. I said, I do. And then he looked at me and he said, but you know what? If you don't get your hind end back in that seat right there, he said, I promise you're not going to enjoy the rest of this day. But it was so funny. It was so funny because, at that point I didn't realize, but I do, I have to be serious sometimes, but I try to do it lightheartedly.
But he didn't want to break your spirit either.
No, he didn't.
He didn't. He saw it.
It was, but it's just skip through life. Just every now and then, play, skip through life, and it's. I mean, you'll find that it's wonderful. So.
I love that. And when you said that, I just took a deep breath and I'm like, life's not that serious anymore. I mean, even my relationship with Christ, sometimes I have to realize all God wants is just me to be his friend.
Yeah.
Why am I making it all complicated? All I'm meant to do is be God's friend, be my husband's friend, be my family's friend, and make friends along the way. Why have I made this
And when we're friends with someone, we're influenced by them, right? So as we become more and more God's friend, all the junk inside our life just naturally slips off. Like you said, when we're married to someone for so long and we're growing together, my husband and I are so different, but in some ways we've become so much the same too.
Yeah.
In some ways, even though he's still maybe, Mr. Straight Pants at like crossword puzzles, and I hate organizing and I'm much more, relaxed. Those things are still there, but our union of who we are as one is so much tighter that we can finish one another. We know we've rubbed off on one another, and I think that's what our relationship with God is like, when you just become so tight.
Yeah.
That other junk, it goes without thinking, I got to get rid of my junk.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I just love that.
But thank you, JD.
Thank you for letting me set in.
And thanks for giving all these years to our company.
I love the company, and I said it years ago when I came in, and if I had any advice for anybody, is you have to take ownership in what you're doing. And, I took ownership in working for this company because I felt it within me that it deserved that. And I'm telling you, when you take ownership of something because you want it to be successful, you work a lot harder.
Yeah.
And harder doesn't have to be serious.
Yeah, right.
I love that.
It doesn't have to.
But it's so funny. I do have to say something about your journey in our company because, you're a Southern boy, right? And you weren't into the health at all, but you work for this health company, yeah? Yeah. And it's been so funny watching your journey because it was only a couple of years ago you did a bunch of interviews with women, right? And had their lives transformed. My plan. I remember you came to me afterwards. You were like, I knew I really liked you guys. I love this company, but I can't do your accent. I didn't really know it worked. You had this whole transformation in your brain about what this company's about.
This company's a ministry.
A ministry. That's what you said. You were crying.
That's
you were crying. You had tears in your eyes.
And it is. And so that makes it really special. But I enjoy it. I enjoy every aspect of it.
And now you're on your own journey to health too.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm trying to get back in that nice bod I had way back when.
No, not, and has you doing push-ups.
Push-ups in the office. Hey, I can do.
I know, you're coming. You're amazing, man.
Yeah.
You started off with one push-up, right?
That long ago, I couldn't do 5. Now I can kick off 20 pretty easy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's even on the Bioidentical.
And my boys say, Dad, you look at that. And I'm like, that's pretty cool when you can impress your kids.
I know.
That's fantastic. I love it. Well, we've got 2 more special guests.
Thank you, JD.
It's gonna
you
be
bet.
Oh,
yes,
come back,
Arden.
Come back, Arden.
Lord.
Coming for us.
You.
You gonna say it while I'm here? Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant.
This is so fun. I'm having such a blast.
Just a few seconds, and then Nate can pop in here. Well, I was just wanting to add kind of to what I was saying earlier. With going through everything I went through and everything I learned, now when I hit bumps in the road, I kind of say to myself, I'm like, man, I don't have the right to be stressed out. I don't have the right to be upset and super frustrated with life after what God has brought me through, after what I've gone through. And that is something I have to check myself every now and then. I'm like, man, I'm so frustrated. I'm so upset. I'm like, no. I don't have the right. I was at one point super stressed out, and like when I was sick and just didn't know the future. But really, after what God has brought me through, I'm like, I don't have the right.
Because
I tell my
you
wife
sitting
all the
here is a
time,
miracle.
Yeah, we look at each other like we're so blessed.
Such a humble attitude. You know, I think that right thing,
it's
my
huge
rights makes us so miserable. Yes, we have certain rights, you know, the right to be free in a country and all those rights, right? But I think I have become when I am most miserable, I'm thinking about my rights.
Yeah.
And when I strip them away and I'm like, I'm just blessed, I can become happy.
Often we as humans, we just get so entitled.
Yeah.
Especially, my generation, we're just so entitled. But with that said, like sometimes we're like, we expect these things out of life, right? But everyone, it doesn't matter what you've gone through, we don't have the right after what Jesus has done for us on the cross.
So true.
That, like, we shouldn't have to be worried about life.
Yeah.
Because he has us, we're going to go through hard times. The Bible says that. We're going to go through trials and tribulations. But don't fear, for I am with you. That's what he says. And that's, I have to check myself. It's not, nobody's perfect. I do get stressed out.
I can't imagine though. And I think, some people listening right now maybe have been through cancer scares. I mean, yours was stage 4 and you were supposed to die.
Well,
but when you are literally faced with death in your face.
My wife was ready to be, like, she was like...
Yeah, she knew she probably thought she was...
Yeah.
I mean, I was, Serene, I don't know if you ever gave up belief, but I had to hold on to my face so much. I wouldn't let my brain go there, but the reality looked like we wouldn't have Arden.
Well, there was moments where, you know how you put movies in your head? If your husband's late home for supper, you've already been at the graveside.
When I was diagnosed, they said, hey, if you're going to have cancer, this is the one you want.
Yeah, I know.
This is the cancer you
want. But then you got the cancer and it was like, oh, okay, this is not the one you want because it's a bad form.
At first I felt great, and then it just rapidly went from stage 1 to stage 4, and generally... I'm not a Christian cuss, or it's not even a Christian cuss word. Generally, at like stage 4, your ass is grass, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. You can say ass is grass.
Yeah.
We allowed ass.
You have the right to say that.
We allowed crap. We allowed a few words on the podcast.
But I couldn't go there with him though, because
I was your little baby.
I couldn't go there. I knew that
firstborn.
If I went there, I wouldn't survive it. I wouldn't be able to breathe in another.
My
breath,
wife still
so
has trouble looking at the old pictures.
Yeah,
she still has trouble.
But this is my question. I haven't had to actually face death. Right, and say that's probably what's going to happen to you when you look at when you just look at the reality, not maybe what you can do through God's healing.
Not now, back then,
back then. How do you choose happiness when you are actually in reality going to die, and you're like, okay, you got death here, probably that's for you.
It's definitely it was knowledge that I'm where God wants me to be. Like my life, in life or death, is by plan and is for the benefit of somebody. My life, like, it's for our edification. Like, whether I lived or died, I kind of got to that point. I didn't think about death. I'm like, I'm not ready to die. I didn't say like, oh, I'm ready to die. I was just like, hey, God,
you trust.
God, I trust where you have me, and whether that's healing in this life or healing in heaven. That's what kind of where, and that I was kind of reached that brain space. And it wasn't until I got to the point where I was like, hey, I'm going to be happy where I am now until I started getting better.
Wow. That's huge,
man.
But
that's so huge.
I mean, I did look death in the eye.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you did.
At a young age.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I have said there's several places I've been through over the years, and they're all like hope for cancer. I'm like, I have thought about several times, if I ever make the millions and the billions, I want to create a foundation. Screw cancer foundation.
No, it's not actually what you actually want to say.
You use the F word.
No, he was raised Christian. He says, I never want to swear in my life. But if I ever was going to swear and I could have permission, I'd like to say F cancer.
Yeah, you wanted a tattoo with F cancer.
And he wanted a cancer foundation called F cancer.
Well, because I don't believe in hope for cancer. I want it done, gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Really,
well, having experienced it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the fact that you now are a bit of a health freak and you hate chemicals, you would have got that. You would have got that tattoo
desperately, just for the looks of it. Desperately, I want one down.
And
my
what
whole
would
back
your
or
nana
shoulder.
think? Nana would be
big right down his back. F cancer.
Nana, you'd take his shirt off and go swimming, and Nana would say.
There were two reasons why I didn't get that, because the health. I don't think tattoo ink, is good for you, especially.
Yeah, when you're
been going through what I went through.
Yeah.
I don't want to add that added weight to my immune system and lymph nodes of having to like constantly get rid of that. But there's another thing I didn't want to have to describe to my daughter. She's like, Daddy, what does that say? Because I was going to get in a different language.
Chinese. And his wife's Chinese.
I didn't want to have to. Man, yeah, that's just, it's kind of vulgar. I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
That was the reason. All right, I'll step out.
No,
of
but
my
I do want to say
here.
one
Okay.
thing. You were talking about how entitlement is what makes people unhappy.
It does.
We don't have the right. Well, it's so true, because as children are happy, right? They're happy because they're playful. But guess what? The only day of my childhood that I was upset and I was miserable was my birthday.
the full day, yeah.
Because guess what? I sent everybody home because I didn't win past the parcel. Like if I didn't win the prize game, I remember every birthday till I was about 10, I sent my friends home. And I was in a bad mood. I got in bad moods because I was entitled.
And
it was my day and everyone had to serve me.
We have to get out of that mindset of like, hey, it's my way or the highway and this is what I expect out of life. Because life, we do get curveballs. We do get things and we don't often plan for them. Most of the time we don't. But sometimes that's what teaches us, and
I
So
love
true,
it. I
man.
love it.
all right.
Okay, Nate, come up here, because
get
you-
those curls fixed, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, work on your image just a little bit more.
He doesn't need to.
No, Mike's
He a
a
handsome chap.
super good looking boy. Okay, hi Nate. Hey,
We
have
gotta
you ever been on our
introduce
potty
Nate.
before?
Yeah, just once.
Were you
Yeah.
sitting in the camera though?
Well, I wanted to say this feels like we're at the Hilltop Church.
Yeah. Nate's a part of our Hilltop Church. Hey, but I want to say he's a big part of our
What
Hilltop
does Nate
Church.
do for us? Nate writes summaries for these podcasts. Nate sets up a lot of our interviews. Nate does a lot of background stuff for Serene and I with content, and we love our Nate. We love his family. His wife. If you've ever been to our cafe and seen the beautiful painting of the butterfly, that was his wife.
Yeah, she's an artist. She's an artist.
What
I've
were you-
never, you know that Toy Story? Whenever I say, oh, she's an artist, I say it like that Toy Story. She's an artist. Do you remember
I haven't
that?
watched it in a while. You've still got young kids in your
goodness,
house.
Yes.
Hey, what were you saying though? You were talking about practical ways to play as an adult.
Well, when JD was talking earlier, he was talking about the skipping, but then he also was talking about how they were all barefoot.
Yeah.
And there's these things that children do mindlessly that's actually incredibly healthy for them.
Yeah.
I haven't really looked into all like the grounding stuff, but I know it's good to be barefooted outside and playing. And I can never get Elijah to put shoes on. So
Elijah's his almost 6
he's almost
year old.
6, yeah, but he was born in Hawaii, so for a while he was a full-on barbarian. He hardly ever had clothes on, so that's sort of how they do it out there in the islands. And so, but even here, shoes are anathema to him. He would never want to put shoes on. Why would I ever put shoes on? And Tears is the same way. She's always following her brother around, but it's so healthy. It's so naturally healthy. They're just being children. They're being themselves. They're being kids. I think about one of our neighbors who always drives by, and he loves to see. He always tells us, "Your kids are just kids. They're they're out doing what they used to do 30 years ago or 40 years ago." And I'm kind of thinking to myself, he was like, "They're not on one of their devices all the time." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh Lord, why would I ever, it's so, again, we love technology for its purpose, and as a tool, but I just think about the climbing of the trees and just constantly building forts. I feel like Tears and Elijah are perennially building forts. They're building forts in the living room. They're building forts in the toy room. They're building forts in their room. It's always building something.
It's play, but it's hard. Like Serene said last potty, it's hard work, but it's play. They're having the blast, right?
Well, there are so many engineering principles
Yes.
that they're developing in their minds. Elijah's naturally mathematical and has more of an engineering bent, but he's constantly building, you know, whether it's with his Duplos or whether it's with all of our chairs and blankets and everything. There's something so incredibly beneficial about the interaction, the kinetics and the muscle memory. And I was telling Serene just earlier in between in the break, when he had just first moved here, there's an apple tree out by our house, and they love that apple tree there. There's 2 swings on that apple tree, but Elijah, first thing, it's not as though anyone needed to talk to him about it. He's climbing to the top of the apple tree, you know, in a jiffy, and he's 25 feet up. He's just barely 3 years old. And, you know, Suzanne might tend to freak out about something like that, but he's just so naturally kinetic and has all of the ability to do all those things. But what we were talking about was, with all of that climbing and all of that constant play, now we have him in gymnastics, and he's really excelling because he knows how to play.
Yeah.
Because of all of that natural play that he was doing, it actually is benefiting him far more than we would necessarily realize. And it's like, oh, stop climbing on everything.
Yeah,
stop
or
jumping
hey, it's
on
time
everything.
to learn to do a somersault. But he had all developed all of that
It
from
taught
natural.
himself. Yeah.
But
Well,
I wanted to
yeah.
ask you, though, and talk about this, because it comes natural, as we say, for children, right? And that's why the Bible said you have to be like the little child.
Yes.
But it's a have to. We have to relearn. So, you know, in the summer, it's too cold for me in the winter, but I purposely have to remind myself, take your shoes off, Pearl, go walk on the grass.
Yeah.
But it's so good for me. But I'm not going to do it naturally because I'm an adult and I've left childhood things behind, right? But so then we have to remind, like JD said, so skip, so do it. And if Danny was just here, he would say, just what if you could? You just do these things.
Yeah.
And that childlike, you know, the play then turns on our oxytocin. It heals us, all these things. I mean, I have looked into the health benefits of grounding with our feet in the earth. It is so incredible. I do have to say this. I was just saying it to Serene. You know, many of you know, have walked through my journey with Meniere's disease, and I have walked out of that. And a while back, I was telling you guys that I was struggling because I do not have any more Meniere's attacks, right? But I had a lot of hearing loss in my right ear where it happened, and this constant whirring in my ear that just never go away. Well, I figured out something. When I take my shoes off, and, you know, we have these timeshares in Mexico. So I'm going to Mexico, you know, a few times a year. And I walk on the beach. This completely goes away out of my ear. It's like, it's that grounding, doing something to my body. And I just said to Serene, it's been like a month or something since I was last there. And I could talk on the phone and hear out of this ear completely after I came back from Mexico, walking twice a day on the beach. And I just said to her, oh, it's been over a month, but it just came back today.
The whirring came back.
The whirring came back. But it's incredible. You know, I just need to, if it wasn't so cold here, I'm sure walking that long on the grass would do the same thing. But it's that grounding. It's connecting to the earth, which heals my body, takes the stress out of it, pulls this whirring out of my ear, and somehow I'm healed? What?
Yeah. So amazing.
It's powerful.
And I wanted to touch on another thing Nate said too. He's talking about his children were perennially building forts, right? And oftentimes when you're building something, you're really just doing the work before the play. So my point is that you don't have to just play to have play, okay? So I noticed when I was a child, most of my play was the setting up for the play.
Yeah.
I'd spend the whole day setting up the place, setting up the baby, everything, you know, setting up the whole thing. I would make special like cribs out of like different, you know, breakfast bar stools, and I would make the whole thing. By the time I'd set it up, it was ready to pack up and like have my like snack and then the afternoon nap, you know, it's like as a young toddler. But the play was actually the work part, was the setting up, and the setting up of perennially, you know, building forts. That's a lot of hard work. That's a lot of tough stuff. They probably don't even get to actually play in the fort much.
Yes.
It's the building. But that's play.
I think it's kind of interesting because when exercise would be a stress to me, Serene, you know, as I said, I would just do it because I had to. It was tick it off the box. But I knew my body needed it. The science, my knowledge said, Pearl, your body needs to exercise. But as I've been, working on my routines, and we both have our routines that we're recording now, and that we're putting out on YouTube, I have been learning different moves. Well, there's this one move called the gorilla fly. And it is, you're in like you stand like your gorilla with your bum out and your chest like really, puffed out. And then you lift a weight in between. It's like you pull it up. Anyway, I mean, it's in one of my new routines that's going to be out on YouTube. But oh my goodness, every time I have to do that now during the week, I so look forward to it. Didn't I call you and tell you I'm in love with the gorilla fly? And now I've just this party have realized
it's probably
why.
really hard too.
It's so hard. It makes my muscles so sore afterwards.
Yeah.
But I'm having the blastiest blast with it. And I'm just realizing why, because I'm playing.
And that's why
I'm pretending I'm a gorilla instead of Pearl. Stress. Do your exercise. No, I'm a gorilla and it's a blast.
And that's why, Nate, you said you loved being in Hawaii because exercise was play. You loved diving. You loved going into the water. And, it's if you took away all of the beauty and all of the atmosphere and everything, it's probably really tough. It was meaning exercise, breath-wise and everything. It would be exhaustive. But when you have all of those other things involved and it becomes play, like people can be hours in that.
Well, in the memory, there's something I will always remember the last time that I went, kind of the last really memorable time I went diving before we moved here to Tennessee. It was on my birthday. Suzanne let me just go for hours. And so I went to, this was on the Big Island. I went to Mauna Kea Beach, it's called. And it was during COVID. So there weren't any tourists there. The beach was almost empty. I mean, it's one of these white sandy beaches that literally the songs are written about, And I remember going out and diving, and there were so many turtles, so many thousands of fish. It was as though I was surrounded with all of creation and I was the only human living. That's how it felt, you know? But the amount of, yes, it is totally, there is an exhausting component to it, especially if you work too hard.
Yeah.
If you work too hard, especially in that sandy water, then you're going to get yourself into trouble.
Yeah.
But you actually have to learn to almost embrace this. You're just kind of floating there.
Yeah.
You're just in the water. You feel like you're one with the ocean.
Yeah.
And when you're seeing, and not in any sort of new agey sort of way, because there's just something so baptismal about being in the ocean, being surrounded with the fish. But it is you are going back to something so deep within yourself, you know, something so childlike.
I want to touch on what you're saying, because you're like, it is hard work, but especially when you do hard work and when you think about it, because even in intense exercise for me, if I concentrate on the hard work and get really focused on the grunt of it, I do feel like giving up. But when there's a flow you can get into, even in a challenge, even in a difficulty, like in the ocean, you decided to get in the flow and almost not in a new age way, but be one with the ocean and kind of move with it. Sometimes I'll say, no, I'm going to get into a flow state. Yeah. That sounds new agey too, but there's science
stop with
to all
the
that.
new age. New age is old age. It's all good.
Exactly. But I get in the flow and the difficulty remains, but my brain is almost like, it's just like you're one with the difficulty. You're not resisting the difficulty, and it becomes play. It becomes fun.
Well, I better get out of here. So
thanks, Nate.
I love it, Nate. Mikey,
are you coming, Mike, or not? You got nothing to say.
No, he's got stuff to say. He's still in the.
Mike's still young enough to play. Oh, he says he's not. How old are you, Mike? Mike's 19.
Yeah, many 19s have forgotten to play.
So he said Mike hasn't lived enough, so we'll
just
bring him
sit
back.
here. I want to see his curls on the camera.
Mike, talk about Catherine.
Catherine. So Mike's mom is an amazing friend of ours.
Had Mike's mom on the pod.
Yeah, she adopted 2 special needs children that nobody else wanted, but
Erin, right? If anyone's listened to the podcast with Erin, what did you call that podcast?
Ooh, don't know, but
Anyway.
This is Mike. He works the audio here, right?
Hello.
In cameras and edits,
Yeah, so if I'm talking about my sister, Catherine, actually the other day, it was like 2 days ago, actually, it was, she was just sitting there in her little room eating her food.
Can we talk about who she is? She's how old now?
She's 5.
She's Down syndrome.
Yes,
Yeah.
special needs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's just sitting there in her little room eating her food, and then she has her little show on like she usually does each night. And then the whole time she's not watching the show. She's like memorizing the show. And then each night she calls me in and wants me to watch her like perform the movie, like the show that she does. She memorizes the entire thing. Before it even happens, she like does it. And I was so surprised. I was like, Mom, what's going on here? This is incredible, because she was like literally rehearsing the entire show. And then I went and I changed a different one because she has like a playlist. And the next one, she even did it. And I was like really surprised that she was able to do that. And
It's that learning.
she's incredibly smart. She just learns it and then just rehearses it. And I was blown away.
But she learns it in that play setting. See?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, I want to see that now.
You should come over and watch it. It's fun.
You know, and I feel like out of all children, there's something just so beautiful about Down syndrome children and the fact that they are even more childlike in that playful, innocent way.
Yeah.
And aren't they some of the most happiest?
Yeah, I know she's
People.
feisty, right? But
Oh yeah, she has her moments, but when she's in her little playful,
Yeah.
like happy mood, she's so sweet. She's so
I
sweet.
know.
She'll like try to give you hugs.
she's so loving.
She'll like try to like feed you her play food and stuff. It's awesome.
So sweet.
Yeah, I've always meant to ask you, because the day that, your mum came on, it's so much work. I mean, Catherine is Down syndrome, not as much work, but Alex, he couldn't walk, talk, eat. Still cannot talk, but now he can do so many things because your mum has worked with him so much, and he's such a
Well, it
miracle.
took a whole team at the hospital
Yeah.
to look after him, and now it's just
Now
But
one
I
it's
do
just
have
her,
to
yeah.
ask you, I've
woman.
never asked you, I've asked Erin, I said, was there a time that you've regretted this? Was it all too much? Because the reality of it is it's all encompassing, looking after these children. Erin's life as she knew it, your mum's life as she knew it is no longer there. And she's given it to these children, But I have to ask you, you're still in the home. You still live at home. You have these 2 children have come into your lives, and they've taken all, so much from your mum and dad, and it's round the clock, and they're in your house, and they're always needy, and there's physical issues and problems and hospital visits and all of this. You can be honest. What do you think is the love given to has it enriched your lives, or has sometimes it been super challenging and you wondered if it was the right choice? I'd just love to hear that from a brother, whose parents have now done this, which was such an unusual thing.
Oh yeah, at first when they're like, we're gonna adopt 2 special needs children, I was like, whoa, are you sure about that? They're gonna be with us forever now.
Yes,
And,
forever.
I mean,
they're never going anywhere.
They're never
no.
going anywhere. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, at first I always questioned it, but now there's so much more joy in the home. Like,
You think so?
when I come home,
Yeah.
absolutely. I come home, I see Catherine and Alex. I always give them a hug, play with them, rough around with Alex, and I get home. Now nothing comes to mind. They're my siblings, and I'm just there to hang out with them.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love them. I mean,
yeah.
so everybody in the home does. My mom was always like, she says, I don't think you guys really, think of them as like your siblings. Like you want to spend like a whole day with them or anything. I mean, I think of them as my siblings, but it's just, I don't necessarily spend time with my siblings either. I just, when I come home, I meet them, I spend time with them when I can. But
And they're so much younger, obviously.
yeah.
So it is different in ways, but
it
but
is
you
different,
but so you believe that so your home feels more love, feels
oh,
enriched.
absolutely. I mean, every night when my parents are up there playing with them, I'll come up and say hi. I mean, if it wasn't for them, it wouldn't be near as joyful in the home. Not even
I
close.
love that. That's
Well,
so
thanks for sharing with
beautiful.
that, because I've always wondered.
Well, children bring a playful atmosphere in the home, right?
Yeah.
They do. And that's, I was sad when we were, the babies stopped coming in our
Yeah.
home. But then the grandbabies come.
Yeah.
You see, it's always good to have that play atmosphere around, right?
Yeah, it really is.
It really is. A home without children.
And
is
it's good
a
for
sad
us,
place.
my children, because Autumn's left at home, but she's an adult now, and sometimes my husband and I now with a quiet home can get really into our little routine, and at night it's just so easy and so perfect, so nice and peaceful. And then, and our kids like, oh, can you watch, some grandchild tonight, or can you take them for a few hours or take them for a couple of nights? And I'm like, yeah, I want to. And sometimes they say, but Mom, I don't want to put you out too much. And I'm like, put me out. You need to put me out. You need to get me out of my little selfish routine where everything's perfect and give me a little bit of a challenge, because I don't want to be this entitled woman where everything's going perfectly all the time.
Because that's not happiness.
It's not.
No.
Because that's just easy
That's
circumstances.
that's when you get entitled, and that's when you get actually not peaceful at all, because you never get peace tested.
Exactly. So my daughter-in-law, Kahura, she's like, oh, I don't want to put too much. I'm like, put more on me. I don't want to be that person that's growing more and more selfish and things are going more and more perfect for them.
Yeah.
I want a bit of grandchild challenge.
And growing more into your like a demure adult state, which is opposite of play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. Thanks, Mikey.
Love that.
And we're at 55 minutes. So, hey, thank you, guys. Thank you, team.
Oh, one more thing. Remember whistling? Remember way back when people would whistle?
Oh, my goodness. Whistling. Yes, I grew up whistling. And lately I realized I'd forgotten to do it.
Even grown men in their 40s would whistle down the street. Way back when.
So there's what? There's skipping. There's whistling. There's barefooting. There is, JD says, twerking, a little bit of twerking.
Yeah, and there's also playing with children. You know what I mean?
Yes, playing with children.
Yeah, it's brought joy to Mikey's life.
And I love it. Hey, see you, everybody.
Yeah.